They say every neighborhood has that one guy who treats the HOA like it's a military mission. Ours? We had Doyle Mason. The man walked like he had jurisdiction, clipboard always under his arm, phone cocked like a weapon. No one voted for him. No one asked. He just woke up one day and crowned himself king of community rules. But last week, he crossed a line Grandpa wasn't about to ignore. Before we jump in, drop a comment telling us what country you're tuning in from. Let's see how far this tale goes. It all started with the squeak of our backyard gate at 5:30 in the morning. I was half asleep, pouring cereal, when Grandpa, rocking on the porch, mumbled, "There he is again." And yep, Doyle was clambering over our fence like a raccoon, phone up, snapping photos of Grandpa's tomato plants. Said they didn't match the neighborhood's visual standards. Can you believe that? A 75-year-old vet growing tomatoes was now a public threat. I wanted to storm out, but Grandpa just raised a hand and said, "Give a fool rope long enough and he'll tie his own noose." That was his way. Patient, cool-headed, the polar opposite of Doyle's twitchy nonsense. This wasn't Doyle's first fence rodeo either. Twice before, we'd caught him snooping by our shed. One time, even jiggling the handle like he expected a meth lab. Grandpa filed complaints with the HOA board, but President Linda Clay just chuckled and said, "Oh, Doyle's just passionate. He cares." Passionate? The man was committing criminal trespass under NC Statute 14-159.13, but the HOA danced around it, calling it internal matters. Grandpa wasn't having it. He called the sheriff. They sympathized, but said, unless we caught him red-handed and pressed charges, it was just our word. That's when Grandpa got busy. For 3 days, he vanished into the garage, whistling old country tunes while I handed him tools. By day 4, our wrought iron gate had a makeover, low-voltage electric wiring, 100% legal under the NC electrical code, as long as it's marked. Grandpa even put up a bright yellow sign, "Electrified gate. Trespassers will be shocked." Sure enough, Doyle came creeping again before sunrise. Grandpa sipped his black coffee on the porch while I crouched by the window, heart pounding. Doyle climbed the fence, crunching gravel with every step, muttering about rule violations. The second his gloved hand touched the gate, zap! He let out a screech like a startled possum, fell backward and scrambled away, limping into the dawn. Grandpa didn't even blink. He just leaned back, eyes shining. That, he said, was the sound of consequences. By mid-morning, the whole block was buzzing. Doyle Mason, dragging his foot down Maple Court, had become the day's drama. Neighbors giggled in driveways, whispering as Doyle tried to spin the story. He told anyone who'd listen that Grandpa had built a death trap, but folks weren't buying it. They'd seen him measuring lawns, peering in windows, counting trash bins. The man was a walking HOA horror story, and he'd finally gotten zapped. But Doyle wasn't done. By lunchtime, the HOA called an emergency meeting. I went with Grandpa to keep the peace, but I should have known better. It was a show from the start. Linda Clay sat at the head of the table, pearl necklace shining, fake smile locked in place. Doyle sat beside her, arm in a sling like he'd survived a war. He jabbed a finger toward Grandpa like he'd found a criminal. "This man," he announced, "has installed a dangerous device. That gate could have killed me." Grandpa stayed stone still. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded document, and slid it across the table. "That," he said, "is a legal permit issued by the state. Compliant, approved, and the warning signs posted plain as day." Linda tried to twist it. "Legacy by chant. Bell or not," she said, "it's hostile. It violates the cooperative spirit of the community. The HOA has the right to control installations." Just Grandpa's voice dropped low and firm, the kind that always made me pay attention. "Control, sure, but trespass? No. North Carolina law clearly makes it a criminal offense to step onto private land without permission. Doyle's done it 3 times now. I'm through giving him warnings. Next time, I'll let a judge deal with it." You could feel the air shift. Neighbors who'd been quiet suddenly started to murmur in agreement. One woman raised her hand. "He came into my yard last month with a tape measure, said my bushes were too wide." Another neighbor chimed in. "He took pictures of my kids' toys and said they were violating HOA visibility standards." Doyle's face turned redder with every voice that joined in. Linda slammed her gavel down, trying to steer the meeting back. "This isn't the place for finger-pointing. We're here to discuss Mr. Thompson's—" But Grandpa didn't let her finish. "No, ma'am. We're talking about Doyle and his crusade. You let him act like he owns this street. Well, today he learned what happens when he trespasses on the wrong lawn. If you've made it this far and love a good neighborhood showdown, hit that like button and subscribe. This isn't even the best part yet. Doyle didn't handle the embarrassment well. After that meeting, he didn't back off. He escalated. For 2 full days, he circled the block in his rusty old truck, crawling past our house like a wolf stalking prey. Grandpa barely blinked, just rocked on the porch, thermos in hand, eyes sharp and quiet. Then came night 3. Just after midnight, I woke to metal clinking outside. I peeked through the blinds, and there he was, flashlight in one hand, bolt cutters in the other, muttering under his breath. He was really going for it. But Grandpa was ready. From his chair, he calmly pulled out a small remote and whispered, "Watch this, kid." As Doyle clamped the cutters to the electrified gate, snap! The current fired, and he jerked like he'd grabbed a live eel. He screamed, dropped the tools, and stumbled backwards into the dirt. Grandpa didn't even flinch, took a slow sip of his coffee and muttered, "Strike 3. Then he raised his phone, already recording. Every twitch, every fall, every muddy slip was captured in crystal clear 1080p. Doyle, still groaning, fumbled for his phone and called 911. "Attempted murder," he screamed. "That crazy old man is trying to kill me with a booby-trapped gate." Within minutes, sirens lit the yard in red and blue. Cops jumped out, hands near their belts, eyes scanning between Doyle, muddy, wild-eyed, gasping, and Grandpa, calm as a Sunday breeze. "Sir," one officer asked, "is this gate electrified?" "Yes, officer," Grandpa replied. "Fully compliant, warning signs are posted, and here's the permit." He slid a laminated document across the porch table, still seated, then handed over his phone with the video rolling. The officers watched, eyes narrowing, as Doyle climbed, cut, and got shocked. One of them looked up. "So you broke in?" Doyle stammered. "No, I was inspecting, for the HOA." The second officer raised a brow. "At midnight? With bolt cutters?" It wasn't even close. State law was clear. Doyle had committed criminal trespass, attempted property damage, and possibly theft. And calling 911 with a fake emergency, that was filing a false report. Another charge. The officers arrested him right then and there, handcuffed and shaking in front of the humming gate. Doyle was shouting about cover-ups, claiming Grandpa was a threat to everyone, but no one bought it. Neighbors had gathered by then, drawn by the sirens. And for once, they weren't hiding their reactions. They were applauding. Grandpa leaned back in his rocker, gave me a quiet nod, and said, "Sometimes, boy, justice just needs a little voltage." Meanwhile, Doyle sat sleeveless, umped in the back of the squad car, soaked in sweat, his reputation in pieces. They even took his little fake HOA badge and tossed it in an evidence bag. The gate he tried to beat had ended up beating him. Because when you push a man like Grandpa too far, you don't just lose the argument. You trigger the downfall of your whole self-appointed regime.